Scene 5. In the arbor outside the crematorium. Outside the columarium. Back an avenue of cypresses. A bench, a chair, a table. Enter the hunter. The hunter. What's this I see? Row upon row of urns, but all alike. A chemist's? A museum? No. A columbarium, a house for doves. But with no doves, no olive branch. Only chaff. The corn must grow elsewhere. In the urns, ashes. So all must be alike, as dust resembles dust. Once human destinies, these now bear numbers and are labeled. Here rests. Yes, I knew you. But you would never learn to know yourself. And you went disguised through life, your long and heavy life. When I unmasked you, then you died. Idolater. That was your name, your character. One had to worship your wretched wife and hateful children. Had to. Or else be victimized. Each Saturday cut to pieces with a flint knife or lynched, or by the Sunday press deprived of bread and honor. The murderer, who has been listening, enters. You light of Tophet state. Around your bier you called the nation, and though dead, counted the wreaths and threatened vengeance on those who stayed away. The murderer. Nice things to say at grave. This is no grave. It's a jar with a bit of dirt in it. No. A stone. He has become slowly petrified. You mean he died of calcification? Yes. He turned into limestone. Tell me a little about yourself. I did that 13 years ago. So you're tired of the subject. But here are the ashes of one whom I could speak well, although, or rather, because he was murdered by you. This victim of yours never did evil for evil's sake, only in self-defense. And when he refused to become an accomplice, he was killed and stripped of all he had. The Japanese appears in the background. The murderer. You go round with that rascally Japanese. You mean to strike me down now? As that tycoon did? Don't speak evil of the dead. Say, poor man. You say that about rascals who stick their fingers in the sugar bin, but never about your victims. Now be off with you. Quick! I shall go when I wish. The hunter displays his bloody handkerchief, and the murderer turns to go. I can't bear the sight of blood. That's one of my peculiarities. Since the 4th of April. The murderer slinks out. To the Japanese. Are you ready for your journey now? The Japanese. I am. Let us sit down here until the furnace has been heated up. Gladly. They sit. Tell me. Now life lies at your feet like hunted game pursued and won. How does the journey look? The Japanese, after a pause. A line with many coils, like the image of a script on blotting paper. Back to front, forward and back, up and down. But in a mirror, You can read the script. What has been hardest to bear? Of all the stones your feet have knocked against. Once I spared an enemy, and afterwards he stabbed me. To have to wish a good deed never done can be the hardest. Another time I gave good counsel to one oppressed. He turned my enemy, took from me all I had, and I was helpless in the hopeless fight. For he had written it by himself that he was the better of us two. And yet all that is nothing. Nothing compared with life's own facts. The humiliation of living. A mere skeleton in a dress of flesh, set going with tendon strings by a small motor in the chest's engine room, run by the heat the belly's furnace can get up. And the soul. The spirit sits there in the heart like a bird in the bosom's cage, in a hen coop or a fish creel. You, widow bird, soon shall I open the cage, and you can fly to your own land, to the glowing sunlit isles where I was born but may not die. Look, here's my best vase, a family heritage which will now house the mortal dust of dust, but once held flowers, and decked a table for a feast. Young eyes and rosy cheeks were mirrored in the gold-rimmed glass, and a small hand served the children with the treasures of the house. Then you became a flask of tears, dear vase, for all the good life gave us came later to be mourned. I remember at the turning of the year, the children held their festival of dolls. With us all dolls are passed on from kin to kin. A child. What is so perfect in its kind as this small being? Not man, nor woman, yet both and neither. A human being in miniature. Say, traveler, I had forgotten you in my own sorrows. Say a word about yourself. About your fate. How do you look on life? How did you look? What did you find most hard, most bitter? What I found bitterer than death was having to take the great joke seriously and treat as wholly what was coarse. When I smiled at the joke, I soon must weep. When coarseness made me coarse, humiliation was my lot. Then this. I was a preacher. In the beginning I spoke well of human nature, brought forward all the goodness that I knew, and set high standards up for life. Ideals, they are so called. Those bright banners on the signal posts calling mankind to joyfulness. But now, how bitter. The beauty of my thoughts and words I must take back. Beauty does not exist in life, cannot materialize down here. The ideal is never found in practice. I know. But it's a memory, a hope, a beacon for one's course. And so, send up the signals. Let the banners blow. They're high, but so seen all the better. They point the way upward, towards the sun. The furnace now begins to glow, and on the cypress tops it throws a rosy light like the flush of dawn. Welcome, day. Farewell, you night of heavy dreams. For the last time I strip, and go to rest, to sleep. And when I wake, my mother will be there, my wife, my children, and my friends. Good night, poor human being. The stage lights up, and the same image as in the first scene, the country of desires, appears in the clouds. Scene 6. At the last gate. Back, 2 white gates opening to a low sandy beach and blue sea. Left, a wooden house, painted red, the hunter's home, in a beechwood. It is an orchard and a box hedge. Left of the house, a small table, decorated for a child's birthday party. A shuttlecock is seen being thrown up and down beyond the hedge. A blue hooded baby carriage stands by the gate. The hunter enters, lost in meditation. Yes. Alone. That's how it ends if one tries to preserve one's life, and not to barter and haggle to get a position. Not to let oneself be stolen, not to let oneself be cowed. When first my brain awoke, and I grew conscious that I was shut up in a madhouse, a penitentiary sanatorium, then I wished myself out of my mind, that no one should guess my thoughts. Thelo mananai. I desired to be mad. Then wine became my friend. I hid. I veiled myself in drunkenness, in the fool's garb of drunkenness forgotten, and none guessed who I was. Now that has changed. The drink of oblivion has become the drink of memory. Everything I remember. Everything. The seals are broken, the book lies open and read themselves aloud. And when my ears are weary, then I see. Everything. Everything I see. Waking from his thoughts. Where have I come to? The sea? The beechwood and the hunter's home. A shuttlecock rises in the air and falls, and here's a wicker carriage with a newborn child. The blue hood arching like the sky over the sleep of innocence. Behind the shutters of that small red house, a man and a woman hide their happiness. For happiness exists, it's true, but brief as lightning, sunshine or convolvulus. One blossom, and one day, and then it's gone. Smoke rises from the kitchen. Beyond's a well-stocked larder, a little cellar underneath. A veranda full of light facing the wood. I know just how it all must be. Just how it was. And there's a birthday table gaily spread for a young child. A little altar to childhood, to hope, to innocent joy built on its own happiness, and not on others' ruin. And there's the beach, with white, clean, soft, warm sand with shells and pebbles, and the blue water to dabble in with naked feet. The garlands of leaves, the paths all raked, for friends are coming to a children's party. They have watered the flowers of my childhood. Blue monkshood with 2 doves inside. Fritillary bearing a diadem, a scepter, and an orb. The passion flower of suffering in white and amethyst, with cross and lance and nails. Sipped by the bee which from its heart draws honey where we find only gall. And here, loveliest of trees in a child's garden, from dark green leaves peep out in pairs the white heart cherries, red and white. Young children's faces, sister and brother playing, caressing, swinging in the wind. Between branch and stem a warbler has built his nest. Unseen singer, song on wings. Hush! The gravel's crushed beneath small boots. Here come the sovereign. The child enters, takes the hunter's hand, and leads him to the baby carriage. The child. Walk closely and you can look at the doll. There's the doll. That's what we call her. But you mustn't walk on the gravel because it's been raked. Ellen raked it, for we're going to have visitors. It's my birthday today. Are you sad? What's your name, child? I'm called Mary. Who lives in that house? Papa and Mama. May I look at your birthday table? But we mustn't touch anything. No. I won't touch anything, little one. Do you know what we'll have for dinner today? We'll have asparagus and strawberries. Why are you sad? Have you lost your money? You can take a cake from the table, but you mustn't take the big one, for that's for Stella. You know, Stella had crumbs in her bed last night, and she cried. And then there was thunder, and we were frightened, so Mama shut the damper. Yes, she'd been eating a sandwich in bed, and it broke in pieces. It was that sort of crisp bread you get in the town. Now, shall we have a fairy story? Can you tell stories? What's your name? My name is Kartophilus. No, you're not called that. Ahasuerus, then. The one that's always wondering. Shall we talk about something else? Are your eyes hurting? Yes, child. They hurt so much. So much. You mustn't read in bed by candlelight. That makes one's eyes hurt. A horn sounds. Ooh, Papa's coming! Exit the child. My child. My child. She did not know me. How fortunate for us both. Farewell, sweet vision. I will not stand in the sun's path and cast a shadow on the youngest's plot. I know the father here. The mother too. A lovely image. An image wavering, but lovely. A memory, perhaps. Or more than that. A hope. A summer's day out in the woods beside the sea, a birthday table and a cradle. A beam of sunlight from a child's eyes. A gift from a child's hand. And so on again. And out. Into the darkness. Scene 7. The dark wood. The hunter. Alone. I have lost my way in the darkness. And Elijah sat down under the juniper tree. And he wished himself dead and said, It is enough. Take my life, O Lord. The voice of the woman in the darkness. He who seeks to lose his life shall find it. Who are you that speaks out of the darkness? The voice of the woman. Is it dark? The woman enters. I ask, because I cannot see. I am blind. Have you always been blind? No. When the tears ceased to flow, my eyes could no longer see. It is good to be able to weep. But I hear instead, and I know your voice. I know who you are, and I believe in you. You must not believe in me, nor in any human being. You must believe in God. I do that too, but in God alone. The children of man are not to be believed in. Weren't you once a lawyer? For the defense? I was the defender of the only true one against the idolaters. You always wanted to worship yourselves, your relatives, your friends, but you never respected simple justice. Sometimes you abandoned the case you were fighting. When they tricked me into pity for an unrighteous man on the pretext that he was poor, I abandoned the case of the unrighteous. You were an evangelist once too, but you tired of that. I did not tire. But when I found I could not live what I was taught, I stopped preaching in order to not be called a hypocrite. And when I discovered that nowhere was there any putting into practice any of those beautiful doctrines, I left their realization for the land of fulfilled dreams. And now? Are you dead? Yes. Socially, but not spiritually. I'm a fighter and so I live. But I don't exist. Only what I have done. Good and evil. The evil I confessed and suffered for. With the good, I tried to do good. Would you still plead the human case? When it was right. Not otherwise. Once, misled by the gratitude I owed a man, I fought a case for him, and in so doing caused great injury to an innocent person. That's how it is even with our best feelings. They beguile us into evil. You are accusing. Prosecutor, whom am I accusing? The ruling powers. Get thee behind me, Satan, before you tempt me to blaspheme. Satan. Yes, Satan. No one was as black as you, because you blackened me, so that I should be like you. And explain this to me. When I confessed my sins, you felt yourselves guiltless and thanked God you were not as I, and yet you were just as bad. Once when I was a child, I saw an execution. What a bunch of hypocrites the crowd was. On the way home, they lamented his fate. Then they went to the taverns and spoke ill of the dead men and felt better themselves. And after that, some of them went back to the gallows and took the dead man's blood to cure epilepsy. They dipped their handkerchiefs in his blood. Look at this one. Oh, of course you are blind. Feel it then. Your eye is in your hand. Gives her the bloody handkerchief. It feels like red. And it is sticky. It smells like butcher's meat. No. I know what it is. I had a relative who died recently. He coughed up first his lungs and finally the heart itself. Did he cough up his heart? Yes. The hunter, looking at the handkerchief. I believe it. The goat, as we know, is not a clean animal. Yet on the great day of atonement he had to bear the sins of all. And thus burned, he was driven out into the desert to be devoured by wild beasts. That was the scapegoat. Do you mean that you have suffered for the sins of others? For my own and others. And so for others. Weren't you something else before you became a lawyer? Yes. I was an architect. I built many fine houses. They weren't all good, but when I built well, they were angry with me because they were good. So they gave the work to others who did it worse. That was in the town of Tophet where I built the theatre. That is considered very fine. Remember it when I have ceased to be. And forget me. I don't exist. Only the good I did remains. Why did you have no pity for your fellows? The question's wrongly put. Did you see any pitying me? No. Then how could I reciprocate an emotion not granted me? Besides, who was it who first preached, mankind is to be pitied? The woman disappears. She's gone. They always go when one seeks to defend oneself. The tempter enters. The tempter. So now I have met you. Well, we will have a little talk. But as it's growing rather dark here, we'll make a nice light. It grows lighter, so that we can see one another. It's essential to see one another if we are to talk sense. This from the Grand Duke. He admires your talents and offers you the appointment of court architect, with a salary of so-and-so, living quarters with fuel, etc., all found. You understand? I don't want an appointment. Wait a minute. There are certain conditions. Well, yes, in a word, you must conduct yourself like a human being. An ordinary human being. I would like to hear more. It would interest me to know how an ordinary human being conducts himself. Don't you know that? Why do you look so distraught? I can answer the last question in 2 words. I look distraught because I'm utterly confused. You see, to begin with, I was one of those people who believed what they are told. And therefore I was stuffed with lies. Everything I believed in was a pack of lies, and so my whole self is falsified. I have gone round with false opinions about people and about life. I have reckoned in false terms, passed off false coin without knowing it was false. And so I am not what I am. I can't mix with other people, can't talk, can't quote another's work of appeal to any statement, for fear that it is a lie. Many times over I became an accomplice in that forge known as society. But when I grew like the rest, I went out and became a highwayman, a robber in the woods. Oh, that's just twaddle. Let's get back to the Grand Duke, who is asking for your services. He's not asking for my services. He's asking for my soul. He's asking you to take an interest in his great enterprise. That I cannot do. Leave me now. I haven't long to live, and I want to be alone to make up my accounts. If payday is at hand, then I will come with invoices, with bills and summonses. Yes! Come! Come with despair, you tempter, trying to gull me towards a coward's denial of the good giver. From the heights' pure air I came down here to walk a while yet among the sons of man and share in their small cares. But here, there was no open road. A ravine among thorns, one was caught in the thicket, leaving a shred here, a shred there. People offered, so as to take back what interest gave, so as to make the gift a debt, served in order that they might rule, set free in order to confine. I lost my companion on the way. One snare was followed by another. I was drawn between grindstones and came out on the other side. A beam of light from a child's eyes led me here, into this darkness. The tempter disappears. Now you are bringing out the bills. What? Even he has disappeared. So I am alone. In night and darkness. Where the trees sleep and the grass is weeping from the cold when the sun has set. But some beasts wake. Although not all. The bat is weaving his cabals. The snake coils under poison plant. The light-shy badger makes a move after a day of sleep. Alone. And why? A traveler in another's land is always stranger and alone. He goes through towns and villages, stays, pays, and passes on, until the journey's end. Then he's at home. But this is not the end. I still can hear a withered branch cracks. An iron heel rings on a rock. It is an awful blacksmith, the idolater with his flint knife looking at me, and the miller with his grindstones into which I was drawn and nearly crushed. The people in the arcade, that arcade, a lobster pot, easy to enter but hard to get out of. And the murderer Mueller, with bills and summonses and alibis and libels. Infamous man! What do I hear now? Music? I know your tunes, and your dear hand. I do not want to meet you. A little way off the fire warms, but not too near, for then it burns. And now, a child's voice in the darkness. You little child, last memory of light, to follow me into the dark night wood. On the last stage of that distant land, the land of fulfilled desires. A vision seen from the mountain tops, but in the valley veiled by dust from roads and chimney smoke. Where did you go, fair vision? Land of longing and of dreams. If but a vision, let me see you again. In the crystal air on the snow-white height. There with the hermit I will stay and wait for the release. Surely he will grant me a grave beneath the cold white blanket and will write in the snow a fleeting epitaph. Here, Ishmael rests, the son of Hagar, whose name was once called Israel, because he fought a fight with God, and did not cease to fight until laid low, defeated by his almighty goodness. O Eternal One, I'll not let go thy hand, thy hard hand, till thou blessed me. Bless me, your creature, who suffers from your gift of life. Bless me, whose deepest suffering, deepest of human suffering was this. I could not be the one I longed to be. And that is the end of August Strindberg's The Great Highway, a wayfaring drama with 7 stations. I always forget how much I like that play. I've read it about probably 3 times before, but every time that last line always hits me like a gut punch, because that is one of my biggest fears in life, is to not get to be the person that I want to be, or to be able to do the things that I want to do. And so that's honestly part of the reason why I started this whole podcast, is because it allows me to act, and it also allows me to share my love of plays and share my love of stories and sharing it with the rest of the world. So thank you for listening. Thank you for giving your continued support. Before anything else, I just wish to say that if there were any parts in this play that were slightly offensive, I apologize for that. In the description for all the plays that I have read, I have put a disclaimer that says that I do not believe in altering source material when it is intrinsic to the story being told, and I do not believe in censorship when we have the knowledge and wherewithal and the maturity to realize that these plays take place in a historical context, and therefore would ask that you also have the same maturity when listening to these plays, and knowing that I am not trying to read these plays out of hateful intent, but historical preservation. Anyways, I'm going to say that I really enjoyed this play, and that I think that this season ended on a high note, even if slightly existential, but that's just kind of my jam. So I'm going to say, follow me as usual. Share this with your friends, send it out into the world so I'm not screaming into the Nietzschean void that is the internet, just as this poor hunter had to do for pretty much the entirety of the play. And please consider following me on Patreon and Spotify, everywhere else. Anyways, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to have you back in Brendan Moyer's Playwright Corner. Thank you.